While I was in England, I had the opportunity to go to the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. Now, I love museums. When I lived in New York City, I spent a lot of time at the Metropolitan Museum and at the cloisters. And so finding myself in a museum is nothing new. I would usually be running off to the medieval and Renaissance holdings, looking at beautiful sculptures and enjoying all of the beautiful art that the museum has to offer. For the first time, though, I found myself seeking out not the usual sculptures and all of the other beauties, but the embroideries. I was drawn into the stitches, the meticulous stitching, the beautiful tiny chain stitches, the design and embellishment in silks and metals. It was amazing. And who would be the best people to share this with me? You, of course. So I wanted to make a little video of some of the things I saw so I can share it with you. Okay, let's start with this mid-19th century robe. The embroidery is done from goat hair, pashmina, and I guess originally it was supposed to be mimicking woven patterns, but then they started to develop different figurative designs. I thought this was incredibly beautiful. You see here some Sikh figures with their beards and turbans. You see dragons and Iranian winged beings, but you also see some Europeans sitting in chairs, and I thought that was kind of interesting. The textiles really reflect such a history of trade. This wall hanging is not embroidered, it's a chintz wall hanging that's dyed. It was probably created for the Western market around 1700, 1720s. And the fine red designs would have been made with a fixative, and then the white on red or other colors was drawn with a wax-resistant bamboo pen. So I think that's incredible that that is all hand drawn. So this was one of the first pieces I saw, and I didn't put down all the information. I was just blown away. Look at the stitching. I mean, this piece is huge, as you can see here, but the detail is absolutely amazing. I was in awe of all of the little creatures, the butterflies, the tiny flowers. Look at their expression. Even the snails are interesting. I just loved every square inch of this piece, and I really wanted to share it with all of you. I had a feeling you would take as much delight in it as I did. I was amazed even by the impact that a few little stitches can have on an overall flower. It was truly magnificent. With this display of young women's caps, I found some kindred spirits because these are pieced together from scraps of material. Yes, just like we do. They would take little leftover pieces of fabric and piece them together into children's clothes or hats or tiny baby mittens, and these little caps were an example of that. Now, these aren't embroidered, they are mordant and resistant dyed, but I just love that they're made from scraps. All right, so I didn't focus as much on weaving, but isn't this spectacular? Next, I came to a piece that felt incredibly familiar. This is from the early 20th century, between 1920 and 1950, and it is an example of cantha. You have these little birds that are among the floral motifs, but look at how intricately this piece is worked. I spent a lot of time looking at it. I absolutely love the detail. The notes on this particular coverlet said that it has a strikingly contemporary feel, and I have to agree. I think it's partly due to the color palette. and how simple the design is, but absolutely beautiful. This is another example of a cotton coverlet, Bangladeshi, 1920s, 1930s. And again, I felt a kinship because this coverlet was made from recycled saris and other garments. So it's the same kind of thing that we are making now. They would serve as bed covers, mats, wrappers. And as we know, there are a lot of geometric cantha quilts. That's something you see a lot. Although I did learn that sometimes they have human figures and animals, and I have seen some examples like that. But this one is purely geometric. I really loved all of those swirling designs and the way that the stitches enhance the feel of the piece. So this example is woven. It's cotton, silk, and gold wrap thread, and it was so beautiful. I mean, look how luminous the thread is. It's a sari, 1855. Absolutely stunning. This next kind of floor spread is an example of kalamkari, which is an incredibly time-consuming process. They start with fabric that's been sun bleached and dried, and then outline the figures in a charcoal pencil. After that, it is a process of hand painting each figure with red, then letting the whole thing dry, then adding other colors one at a time, allowing for a complete drying in between. They only use natural pigments, and so if you see green, it's because there was yellow and then blue applied over that to make the green. I thought this was an incredible example of hand-painted fabric. This piece is from the 1630s, and if you want to look at this in more detail, I would highly recommend doing a little research on kalamkari. This next piece is a tent panel from about 1700. It is cotton embroidered with silk floss and metal wrapped thread. There is a lot about this piece that I find amazing, but one of the things is that that entire background was stitched in silk thread wrapped in strips of gilded silver. So that entire background has been filled in with stitching. And then, of course, all of the beautiful flowers are exquisite. I think that one of the things I enjoyed the most about visiting the Victoria and Albert and seeing these collections was that I love embroidery. I have only come to it recently, and to be able to go and see pieces that have been created for centuries by the most incredible embroidery experts was so encouraging and inspiring. Like, I loved how on this piece you've got that heavy embroidery around the figures that are either satin stitched or maybe it's the fabric underneath. I couldn't really tell, but just observing what that looks like and how the interplay of textures makes the figures pop. It just got me so excited and inspired about what I might be able to create. I just feel like I'm learning and learning about different cultures and understanding something from people who have been masters for generations. I loved seeing these little fragments of dress fabric from the early to mid 18th century. Love the floral designs. You can see the embroidery on some of these. And then others are hand-drawn or printed, dyed. Some have applied gold leaf. I loved the description that the early traders had of the Bengali muslin. They said it was like woven air. I thought that was so cool. Because if you've ever seen really light fabric kind of floating, that's exactly what it looks like. This tiny little textile fragment is 13th to 14th century. Cotton, block printed, indigo dyed with a resist printing on it. Just an amazing little piece of history. This absolutely stunning bedspread is quilted. It was cotton with embroidered silk. from about 1600 to 1630. I thought it was interesting that this was made for the Portuguese market, and it has some Christian symbolism in the figures in the middle of it. And of course, what I found incredible is just the stitching. I mean, look at that. So this mid-19th century piece is made of fine muslin, but what I found amazing was the use of the little beetle wing cases. That's what those little green jewels are. They're not actually stones, they're beetle wings. And it's also decorated with silver gilt trimmings. Just an astoundingly beautiful piece. This would be worn by men in the court, and it was popular all the way from the 1500s to the 1800s. One thing that you find in courtly clothes, I think across a lot of cultures, is that the children are dressed basically like miniature adults. And you see that in this robe. It's child-sized, but you still have silk. You have it woven with metal-wrapped thread. It's trimmed with silk. This example is from North India from the mid-19th century. But all of that detail, still the same as you would have on an adult's garment. Behind these pieces was a silver dupatta, which is a woman's shawl or head cover. And this particular example is stunningly beautiful. The fabric itself is woven silk and silver strips, but the embroidery was silk, sequins, and then little pieces of foil, which I could not tell exactly how this was done. But look at that detail. This next floor covering is made of cotton. It's quilted and embroidered, has silk and metal wrapped thread, and comes from about the mid-18th century. I found all of the flowers absolutely inspiring. Look at all those designs. And I love the way that the leaves have different tones in them. Again, I just am finding so much inspiration in these pieces. Not only the design, but the workmanship, so beautiful. And I love the brilliant colors. I'm just going to let you sit here and bask in how amazing this embroidery is. These details are incredible. I spent so much time just looking at them. And of course, I took photos of the different individual flowers. I love the layers of stitching. I feel like I learned so much just by looking at these pieces. Okay, so this gown looks like it's printed cotton, but no, it is so finely embroidered that it looks printed, but it's actually embroidery. This is mid 18th century, and then it would have been sent to England as a piece of fabric and then tailored there. So it's cotton embroidered with silk thread, and it is so, so beautiful. So this next piece is an example of trade embroidery. These were textiles that were designed to appeal to European markets, and they're on cotton embroidered with silk. Again, I find myself inspired both by these designs and the shapes and the geometry and how free-flowing some of these parts are, and also the quality of that chain stitching. It is so intricate. And yet, when you pull back from the individual stitches, the design is so beautiful. And I would say that when you really look at the whole thing, it's hard not to imagine it as a printed piece. Okay, so now we are going to move from India to Iran. This particular robe is a man's outer robe, and it is made of silk with metal wrapped thread. I love all of the little details, the trees, the birds, the little insects. Of course, the red is striking against the gold. And as the light plays over it, the figures become more white, more bright with that luminous thread. These photos only scratch the surface of what you can see at the Victoria and Albert Museum. It is, of course, one of the preeminent museums of decorative arts and embroidery and textile art. If you are ever in London, do yourself a favor and go by and see this incredible collection. I am so happy and thankful that I got to go and see these pieces. Thank you for joining me for something really different on Kate Stitching, and I will see you soon back in the studio.